This is on. There's John Palmieri. John Palmieri, welcome aboard. How are
Good to
you?
see you,
Good to
Josh.
see you. Grab a
Been a while.
seat. So,
Hey.
welcome.
It's good to be here.
Yeah.
I parked across the street and wasn't sure where 90 was.
You didn't know where 90 was? You were the head
No.
of planning and development for like 2,000
No, you
years.
should have a number put on your building.
Well, that would be a problem with our landlord.
Oh, jeez.
I don't even want to get into that.
Okay,
There's a
let's not go there.
controversy every day in
Really?
Providence. So, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be
I
here.
probably haven't seen you in any significant time other than bumping into you once or twice since you were the head of planning and development back in the 1990s. Back in
That's true.
I can't use the word good old days, but they were under the tenure of then Mayor, the late Vincent Buddy Cianci. Junior, not to be confused with Dr. Cianci.
It's true. I spent about 10 years.
10 years.
But I always very quickly say that I was hired originally by Joe Palmieri.
You were hired by Joe Palmieri, kept by Vincent Cianci,
Yes.
and 10 years with Vincent Cianci. I do believe when you get to the pearly gates and you mention that to St. Peter, he will rush you in to heaven.
Oh, that's a good thought. I'm not sure about that, Josh, but 5 years with Joe Palmieri and
Yeah.
10 with Buddy Cianci.
And then talk a little bit, and then we're going to go back to some of these things. Then Tom Menino up in Boston.
Spent 5 years as the head of the Boston Redevelopment Authority with Tom Menino.
And for people who don't know, the Boston Redevelopment Agency is the agency in Boston. It's analogous to commerce here in Rhode
Yes.
Island. It fuels everything and
It's-
decides most everything.
Correct. It's a very powerful redevelopment authority. It was given exceptional powers back in the 50s when lots of redevelopment authorities got created.
Yeah.
But the Boston Redevelopment Authority granted itself, or the state legislators did, the right to approve all zoning and land use approvals.
Sounds like a Kevin White movie.
It might have been.
Yeah.
It might have been. It was during his tenure. And so not only do we provide, does the BRA provide funding and support, technical and other type support. It runs the Marine Industrial Park and Charlestown Navy Yard, but it also has to approve any change to zoning or request for any variance. And that means that every university, every college, every academic research institution, private sector, industry needs to come to the BRA. And it can be a punishing process.
You're allowed to. This is not FCC regulated television.
No.
We have not ventured into the 7 words that George Carlin said you can't say. Except for I think Vinny Pazienza dropped a couple.
Did it?
Yeah, on his
So
appearance.
you recommend that your guests
Stay.
careful?
Be careful. Be
Okay.
careful.
Fair
From there, you went to.
well, after Providence, I spent 2.5 years in Charlotte,
Charlotte,
North Carolina.
an
with,
exploding city.
exploding, the wonderful new South City, big banking center,
Yep.
corporate center now, growing, prosperous city, and served as their economic development director under Pat McCrory,
Oh yeah.
the governor who kind of
Yep.
went a little bit too far, I think, in supporting some very conservative legislation, Josh. And so I spent some time there, helped them with their transit-oriented development program. They have a light rail system now in Charlotte, and they built a new stadium and arena. And of course, downtown, the residential development and the corporate community have been building nonstop. So 2.5 years there, and then I spent a couple of years 4 years in Hartford,
Yep.
doing the kind of stuff that gets done in Providence. Hartford, more challenged.
See, Hartford plays an important role in the psyche of Providence because no matter how badly we're doing, we can always say, "Take a look at Hartford."
That is true.
So despite
Worcester
all-
used to be in that
And
category.
Worcester's pretty hot
but they're
right
getting
now.
hot
They're getting hot.
because of the academic and research.
That's right.
community,
It's WPI
Yes.
is the secret to Worcester's success.
Yes.
And it's attracting a lot of attention in venture and private equity out of Boston, which we have not been as successful in doing so in Providence.
Yes.
You had a stint with Governor Christie,
Most recently, 5 years,
5 years.
running one of the state authorities, what is known as the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority, CRDA.
Yeah.
And again, principally a redevelopment authority focused on rebuilding the infrastructure and creating some housing and doing some other type development to complement gaming. Atlantic City lost a lot of the gambling
Brutal.
industry. Brutal. It's been
Crushed.
brutal. 20,000 jobs lost, and poverty is entrenched. It's a tough city. 5 casinos closed over the past 5 years. So the governor's idea was to create a more robust CRDA focused on all of the other non-gaming sector type
Sure.
economic activities, including the meds and eds. Stockton University, a state college,
Yeah.
is now creating a campus in town, and some other infill residential development is occurring. And some large national retail tenants recently opened up, Bass Pro and Margaritaville. And, the casino industry is still alive. It's about half its size from the 1990s and early 2000s. It's still a $2.5 billion industry. And our role was to try to create a kind of a more diverse economy, looking at the other kinds of things, from convention center and trades related to hospitality to a more robust and complete retail sector to residential infill development. And it's a work in progress, but it's a tough.
Yeah, that's a
time.
tough city. It's always
Tough
been a
city.
tough city.
Yeah.
It's had some booms and busts. Okay, so you've worked for Chris Christy, Tom Menino, and Vincent Buddy Cianci Jr. Who was, let's just get some comparisons out of the way, the best yeller?
I was told you were going to put me on the spot. Joe,
Oh, yeah,
and I expected nothing less.
there's no possibility you are going to go with a resume like that.
Who was the best yeller?
Yeah,
I have to say that Buddy Cianci was as good as any at blowing up.
oh, well, as a former councilman and minority leader, and it gives great value to you because people will say, you write that article and we're going to do blank blank to you. And I just go, listen, I've already had it all done to me by Vincent Buddy Cianci Jr.
You've been through it.
Yeah, I've been through it all.
And I dealt with it, every so often. He, Tom Menino had his moments. Obviously, he could get upset.
Yeah.
But he had a short fuse, but it would end pretty quickly.
Yeah,
Buddy Cianci, Mayor Cianci, had a tendency to really play it out for like 20 minutes at a time. And that
Been
was
there,
the painful
yeah,
part.
yeah, I
was-
experienced
He
it,
could
yeah.
be very difficult, and who was the other mayor?
Chris
Chris
Christie.
Christie. Frankly, Governor Christie, and of course we've all seen him on TV, and we
Yeah,
know
sure.
that he has been presented as a bully and someone who is difficult to deal with and would go after the unions and not suffer fools and be very aggressive on TV. But as a governor, as someone I worked for, he was always very thoughtful and very
Yeah.
considerate, and probably the most intelligent chief executive.
really.
But to see him on TV, Josh, and especially when he began to run for the presidency
Yeah.
2 years ago, his character changed, and he had to put on a different kind of a behavioral
Yeah.
coat, so to speak, and became much more aggressive to try to win the nomination.
Well, I think Trump changed everybody's behavior because they all tried to react to him, and accordingly. I will say this about Chris Christie, his speech up in New Hampshire in a town hall about opiate addiction
course.
was probably one of the best political speeches I've ever seen in my lifetime. And it's on YouTube if anybody gets a chance. It's probably from a public policy and an emotional standpoint, how to connect with people about something that really matters. It was
I
probably
saw
one of the
that.
best.
I saw that, and he had moments. A great public speaker. But Buddy Cianci, by the way, was a terrific public speaker. But Chris Christie legitimately could speak in front of just about any audience.
Yeah.
On opioid addiction, he's created a real niche for himself.
Yeah.
His ratings are very low in the state, all-time lows for any state office holder in New Jersey. But he does seem to really have a legitimate interest in helping people who've
Yeah, there's
suffered
clearly a
from
passion
the
about it.
addiction. And you have to give him that.
Yeah.
I must say he cares about people who are suffering.
So in a couple of your stints, you saw some of the best. You helped design and oversee the Renaissance in Providence. You saw and helped choreograph, everything from Water Place Park to Providence Place Mall to just an amazing cadre of redevelopment issues. And then in Boston, similarly. I mean, Boston while you were there just literally caught on fire and is carried forward. You can't move up there without tripping over a crane. You come back here, you just came back to Rhode Island,
Yeah.
and we'd be hard pressed to find a crane in the capital city during a period of time in New England where, most cityscapes are flooded with them.
Yes.
What's the problem here?
I have a few thoughts. First of all, if you live in a city, sometimes you don't notice the organic and incremental change that takes place. Honestly, that sounds a little hackneyed, but it's true. And so whenever I've been back over the past 10 years, I've seen infill development occur within the Down City District.
Sure.
New retail
Yep.
activity, a lot of housing, probably a few thousand units now,
Yep.
maybe more. Certainly in Capitol Center, if you can combine all the activity that has been taking place between Capitol Center and downtown, you'd have to conclude that the city is becoming a live-work place.
Yeah.
That was never the case.
Right.
I think MBTA and access by rail to Boston and the highway system helps to do that. And we've got the colleges and universities that are a tremendous force for development and research. But, so I see a lot of things that I really do appreciate, and yet I understand that commercial occupancy is down.
I'm gonna bark back a little bit. My sister splits her time between Somerville and Portland, Maine, and she has a condo in Somerville, which is analogous to Pawtucket. I mean, it's Somerville.
Yes.
And you go up, they have a rooftop, it's a condo development, they have a rooftop, and you go up there, and you can't count all the cranes in Somerville. And we don't have a single, I mean, maybe there's one somewhere around here. I mean, you're not attracting investors, you're not attracting money from New York. We're not attracting outside people who see Providence as a good place to pour money into because they see a rate of return.
Well, Somerville is 2 miles from downtown Boston. They built it.
Still Somerville.
But it's a couple of miles from Boston, and it's got rail connections now that are better. They built subway stops.
Yep.
That all helps. And so, and that's not to deny the fact that Providence has been quiet. I think the corporate community hasn't created enough new commercial space, and that has to do with demand, obviously,
Yeah.
and absorption. And no one's going to build on spec in Providence.
No.
Boston is too close.
50%
Yes.
vacancy?
50. Well, I didn't know it was that large, but it just anecdotally from walking around and talking with people, I've noticed that. I think Boston hurts and helps Providence.
Yeah.
We're like Siena to Boston's Florence.
Yeah.
We're just a little bit too close, but we get to take advantage of the connection to work there and live here, and
Yeah.
we enjoy a little bit of both.
Yeah.
But I would say that the I-195 development, the sites that exist there, along with, if you've heard this 100 times, Josh, and I'm newer to it now, but the kind of reuse, right? The
Yeah.
adaptive reuse of the Superman building.
Yeah.
Are two things that I've got to believe are going to happen. The building is too important to downtown. This is like, you set the table around the Superman building in a way. And yes, it takes a lot more money to renovate older space, although some work was done before B of A left. I'd like to think that over time, the developer from Boston, the Boston-based developer,
Yeah.
will, and I know that the city and the state don't want to provide incentives and don't want to deal with another Studio 38 type
Yeah.
fiasco, but I think there is something to be said for providing investment capital based on performance, and there are ways to do it. New Jersey does it, and I'm not certain enough about what the state does now through EDC, but there are ways to make sure that the benefit only inures to the developer if the employment and renovation occurs. And so there may be ways to encourage.
Spark.
Is that the spark, the catalyst. So I think the Superman building over time will have to be developed, and there are not many other locations that provide the asset value that the former Fleet Bank does. And likewise, I-195. Capitol Center's happening, right?
Yeah.
No one would argue that it's still a hollow site.
Yeah.
It's taken 20 years, but it's happening. And you're close to Amtrak, you're next to the State House, you're a stone's throw from downtown, the Providence Place Mall is there. There are too many assets, the academic, the highway, the rail assets, to keep Providence from seeing some development soon. But I hear what you're saying, and I.
Do we run the risk, though? We're on a, regionally, we've been on an economic boom. Boston, obviously, just absolutely on fire. Boston's biggest problem may be it's growing so fast that it's pricing people out of the marketplace. You can't touch a decent residential place really for, it's getting towards $1 million to be able to live up there. But all cycles are, to have their ups and downs. Are we really getting close to running the risk of missing the cycle?
I don't think so. For the following reason. You've got the built environment. You have assets that are not moving away.
Yeah.
You've got the locational benefits of being on Narragansett Bay and against the highway and against on the Amtrak rail system. You've got a great art scene. You've got historic, very, very valuable property in downtown. And it's a small.
Yeah.
This isn't a sprawling downtown.
Right.
It's a very well-defined downtown that isn't too big. I don't know what the total square footage is for retail and commercial space, maybe 10 million square feet plus or minus. So I think absorption will occur over time. Now, taxation is always a question, but it's the same way in New Jersey or Boston. So I'm not sure that it's that. I think.
Do you need one thing to be the best at? Is that our mistake a little bit now? We have the third or fourth or fifth highest commercial tax rate right now.
Yes.
And there's not one thing that you can say, well, Providence, to attract people here, we have the best at X, Y, or Z. We were talking with Aaron Wren, who's at the Manhattan Institute a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about food, and Aaron made the point, Providence might be a little delusional about their food. They have great food, but he said, most mid-sized cities today have great restaurants. It's not like we're the only mid-sized city in the country that has great restaurants. Yes, we have Brown and RISD, but most mid-sized cities have colleges and universities. So, what is it the thing that we're going to become great at that can help differentiate us?
Well, the next guest may want to talk a little bit about that. And I know that, and Saul and I go back, our kids went to school together.
Oh, did you?
So I got to say hello to Saul. But, this whole idea of innovation, right? It's become an overused term, and I know Saul talks about that, right?
Yeah.
What is innovation? Everyone uses it. It becomes a meaningless term.
Yeah.
But there are some opportunities within the R&D community. And again, we're competing with Boston, the medical center district.
Yeah.
But I do think that Brown creates a terrific footprint for some of the life sciences and biotech research. And listen, we can be a smaller version of Boston and be successful, and we can take advantage of their location by rail to become a place where people might want to continue to live, right?
Yeah.
So that people will see downtown as a great place to enjoy a 1,000 square foot unit for $400,000 instead of $1.2 million.
Right.
I think there are those opportunities, Judge, but there's no simple answer to why it hasn't happened and why there's so much vacancy. I must say I'm surprised. I just would imagine the spillover from Boston, never mind the Brown and RISD kind of sprouting of new little tech businesses would have created some energy behind
Well,
it.
I think one problem, we talk a lot about it, is the lack of early stage financing to companies. There's two private equity firms, but they don't play in this market. They're Providence Equity Partners and Nautic. They're playing at the national, and Providence Equity Partners is functionally playing at the global level. $50 billion under management. There's no VCs. There's no seed or little seed in the market. I won't say no seed. And historically, realistically, Brown has not been a huge generator. This is not MIT and Harvard colliding in Cambridge, and 1,000 new businesses start off those two organizations on an annual basis. There's a few, and some are successful and some aren't. Before you go, one Buddy Cianci comment before you go?
Yes. The mayor used to, we'd hold meetings every week, staff meetings. Josh, you may have heard about the staff meetings.
Oh, yeah, I heard about the staff
Not for council
meetings.
members, but...
No. I think he called me a couple times from those staff meetings.
It would be like being
On
called...
speaker.
Yes.
Yes.
All 20 or 30 of us would assemble in the mayor's office every Friday, and it was like being being told to attend a meeting that Saddam Hussein was, we'd sit there quietly and wait for our names to be called. But on occasion, when he got upset with me about one thing or another, because when you're the planning and development director, something's going to fly your way.
Right.
He would occasionally pick up the Providence Journal and in front of everyone go to the help wanted part of the paper and he'd say, you know, Palmieri, I don't see any help wanted ads for planning and development directors. Keep that in mind when I'm telling you to get something done. And so it was done in...
That was a long time ago, because I don't even think they have a help wanted section anymore.
Yeah, that was back in 1998 probably, but the mayor was may rest in peace. When I left the city to take my job following my employment here with Charlotte,
Yeah.
I kind of said goodbye forever to Buddy Cianci.
Yeah.
And I know that, you know, he served his time and came back and he tried to give back to the community a little bit, and
Yeah.
became a radio guy and all that stuff. And I think he meant well, as brutal as he could be.
Yeah.
And he was a tough guy to deal with, Josh, and you know the stories.
Yeah.
He loved the city.
Oh, yeah,
And that
absolutely.
came through. And, you know, if there's one thing that all these chief executives have that keeping with one another is that they are relentless. They've got huge egos. They don't see gray.
No.
Pretty much black and white. And I've seen this with every chief executive, and that's not necessarily good. But at that level, you need to know what you want to do, and you need to force the issue. And Buddy Cianci did that. He was not only a cheerleader; he forced things to happen that
Yeah.
would otherwise, I think, wallowed.
I always see there's a test for a mayor. So you want to be mayor, everybody who says they want to be mayor. It's your third year in office of a 4-year term, and you wake up on a beautiful Saturday morning, the first nice spring Saturday morning, kind of like we had this weekend, and you look at your phone and you see that you have to go throughout the first pitch at the Elmwood Little League. Now, a normal human being goes, oh, God, I have so much yard work to do. I want to go out with my kids and my family. Da, da, da. Mayors like Buddy Cianci go, I cannot wait to get to that Elmwood Little League. I'm going to see that councilman, and I'm going to let him know about blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I'm going to see that ward chairman, and those two guys who've been running that league, I got to talk to them about
Yes.
blah, blah, blah. And that's what mayors are about.
Yes.
They cannot wait to get to that little league.
Tom Menino had the same, and he's the longest-serving mayor in Boston's history, 30-plus years.
Right?
Christy, the same kind of spirit.
Yeah.
And listen, these guys had their faults,
Yeah.
plenty.
Yeah.
But I think that what allowed them to persevere and succeed to a certain extent was that absolute relentless quality.
Yeah, and passion.
Huge ego and passion. And so, you know, you learn a little bit when you work for each of these kinds of individuals. And now I'm kind of enjoying a little bit of retirement, at least for a little while. And
But
we'll see
you're
what
passionate
happens.
about coming back on Go Local Live in the future?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Thanks so
Joshua,
much, John.
thanks